All right, I'd like to call this meeting for October 10th, 2019 order of the Bethel Village Council. Everybody rise, please, for invocation and pledge. Let's pray. Father, we do thank you for this day, for your love and your mercy, and just pray that you be with our village and the residents of our village and our community. We pray that you be with these members of council tonight as we conduct the business of the village. We just pray that you grant them wisdom. We thank you, Father, for your love and mercy in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, council, thanks for being here. Mr. Gilpin, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Ms. Shepherd?
Here.
Ms. Hollifield?
Here.
Ms. Ross?
Here.
Mr. Noble?
Here.
Ms. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Coogan?
Here. All right, thanks. Next up is our approval of minutes of our September 12th meeting. Y'all seen those? Any corrections, amendments? I wasn't here, so I'm going to trust that you guys knew what happened with it. If not, I'd entertain a motion to accept those as read.
So moved.
Mr. Noble first,
I'll second that.
and Ms. Shepherd seconds. And call roll, please, Mr. Gilpin.
It hung up on me here. I'm trying to get it to open.
Want to hit it?
It was Mr. Noble, and who seconded it?
Ms. Shepherd?
Okay. Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hollifield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes. All right. Thanks. And then for communications, we do have Mr. Adam Burr here, who's a candidate for our State House, and he would like to speak to us.
All right, thank you, Mayor Osmond, and thank you to Village Council. It's great to be back with you again. And I wanted to apologize about my absence at your homecoming parade. My campaign parade manager was here with some supporters, but at the last minute, I planned to be here. At the last minute, the Richmond Student Council had asked me to be their grand marshal, and so I couldn't say no to that. And so we were in two places at one time that night, and I and my wife went to the New Richmond homecoming parade, and my parade manager and several supporters went through here. So I saw the pictures. It was pretty huge, and it's obviously something that you guys ought to be proud of. I just want to let you know, fundraiser went very, very well. We had a fundraiser about a month ago. It was well attended. We had about 80 in attendance, and besides the 80 that came, we had a bunch that told me they wanted to come, could not come, and supported us anyway financially. And so it gave us a lot of energy, momentum, and excitement, I think. And so I'm very thankful for those who came. And so I think the ones who left there went away feeling very positive about what we're doing. I would tell you, some of you may know that I retired from the Richmond schools about 5 months ago, and after being superintendent there for 9 years, and another school found out that I wasn't working. And they called me up and said, hey, can you come help us out for a year? And so I said, well, I'm going to try to make this political thing happen. If I can do that, that's a year and a half away, so I can give you 1 year. So I am working as an administrator, principal in Batavia Schools this year as a rehire. And that's good anyway, because my wife going to work every day and me sleeping in every day wasn't going to work very long. But I'm very thankful to be here. And I got to tell you, I'm working hard to get the endorsement of the Republican Party here in Claremont County. And you know, there's a lot of those kinds of meetings coming up in the next couple of weeks, and so that's a big part of the agenda. But besides all of that, I'm trying to get out to a lot of these functions still. I was at the Brown County Fair 7 out of 10 days in a row.
Oh my goodness.
So I spent a lot of time out there. Their parade is just a little bit bigger than yours, but you guys, your parade, from what I heard, was huge. And so anyway, I am very easily reached. And so having been a superintendent for a long time, I've worked with a lot of different groups. I'm good at communicating, I'm good at listening, and if you have a desire to reach out to me, I can be reached pretty easily through Facebook. I believe I've given you guys my card before. Does anybody not have my contact information from before?
I still have it.
You still have it? I've got them if you need it. I know I only got 60 seconds, so I'll stop now, but I welcome you guys reaching out to me if you have any questions. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. We accept your apology for not being here. All right. Next up is our public input. Do we have any public input this evening? Okay, that brings us to administration and committee reports, and I'm up first, and we have Mayor's Court report for the month of September 2019. We had a total revenue of $9,773.50, with $7,231 going to the village, $2,452.50 to the state, and $90 to the county. Also, I want to remind everybody, Halloween's coming up, trick or treat on the 31st. Chief Teague has said that everything's good to go for that, so that's from 6 to 8 that evening, and I'm sure it'll be a fun night that night. And also, it was brought to my attention, actually last night, that our December meeting, we have a need to move it to 5 p.m. So I want to get that out there early. So give us more than a month in advance, so 5 p.m., and that's December the 12th. 5 p.m. December 12th. Does anybody have any objections to that? We don't have to make a motion or anything, right?
We do need a motion.
Do we really? My goodness.
Make a motion, we move the December 12th meeting to 5 o'clock instead of 5:30.
Thank you.
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Holyfield. And Mr. Coogan, is there any discussion about it? Okay, call the roll, please, Mr. Gilpin.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Holyfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Okay, that is done, and I think that's all I have. Next up is our village administrator, Mr. Dodson.
Thank you. Working through getting the papers processed for the next round of our playground equipment at the park, so that is progressing. I did submit for the community, the Claremont County Community Grant. We'll see if we get that. That would cover $20,000, but we'll proceed with that either way. So hopefully we'll have that submitted and get the equipment ordered within the next week or two. So Public Works has been working on replacing hydrants. They've replaced 5 hydrants over the last couple of weeks. So we believe that we are caught up on those, getting those replaced. We're going to order some more hydrants to add hydrants at the north end of our service area. There are some spots where there are some wide gaps between hydrants, so we're going to get those ordered, and depending on the fall weather, we'll try to get some of those installed. Most of the repairs that we did not require much of a water outage. We did have the one hydrant at the corner of South and South Main. We did have more outages there than we expected. We think there must have been a valve that has been closed for a while that we didn't realize was closed, so we still have to track that closed valve down, but that didn't allow water to circle around like it should have, so we'll work to find that. Let's see what else we do have. Again, I wanted to remind us, we will be going back to collecting leaves this fall if you rake them to the curb. We did purchase that used leaf vac trailer, so we did put that out on the utility bills this month, and that will begin as needed. Just a reminder not to clog the catch basins and keep them away from gutters, but we will collect those as they are raked to the curb. And I think that's everything I have.
Can I ask one question? So don't rake them into a ditch? Just
We
rake them
can rake them into an open ditch line, and we'll try to get those as quick as we can. Just don't cover up a catch basin or
Okay.
that type of thing.
Okay.
Sometimes you can't avoid a ditch.
Right.
You know, it needs to be next to the road so that we can reach them, but
Okay.
I saw the guys got the west end of Cherry.
yeah, there was a collapsed area there. We were afraid there was a spring or something, that there was gonna be a good bit of water underneath there, but it was just thin pavement, so. They dug that out, and they were putting, I think they were putting in a base layer of asphalt today, and then they're gonna put in the surface coat tomorrow, so. And they're gonna trench the ditch line there, make sure we get water flowing a little better in that. So the water, it looked like it was an area where the water was running out onto the roadway there as well. And then there was a tree that was leaning over that was causing, a good bit of shade, so it never dried out. So there was a few issues there that resulted in that collapsed spot, so.
Okay, very good. Next up is our fiscal officer, Mr. Gilpin.
Okay. Just wanted to report that our 2017-18 financial audit has been completed, and we were notified one day last week it has been released, so it is available online to the public. We had a conversation at Finance Committee last evening about a couple of the comments of changes they wanted us to make in some of our reporting at the end of the year. So that being said, we'll have first reading this evening to establish Fund 2909, which will be to move on paper to track the revenue stream from the mayor's court. Right now it's kept outside our UAN software. That'll be inside there. And then we also had the same discussion about the Burke Trust. They want us to reflect that on our statements, whereas in years past we just had to add it to the footnotes. So I spoke with Emily today. We didn't have enough time to draft the language for that ordinance, so we'll have first reading on that one next month. But beyond that, we have like 10 or 11 pieces of legislation for all just readings tonight. But the annual one for our prosecutor is ordinance 1923, and it's Keith Thurman will remain as our prosecutor. We'll have first reading on that. And ordinance 1924 is for the magistrate, Joseph Candido. We'll have the first reading on that one as well. And then we also have resolution 1039, which addresses employee compensation for 2020. This was also discussed at Finance last evening. That resolution calls for a 2% increase for all employees, with two exceptions. One employee is new enough that doesn't qualify for a raise, and the other one is due to Travis's contract kicking in January 1. His calculation is slightly different than the straight 2%. We also have first reading on Resolution 1040, which is the annual advance of taxes. And then the other one, the last one, we discussed next year's police budget a little bit last night. So we also have first reading on the ordinance for the annual transfer from the general fund to the police operating fund for next year. The dollar amount has changed from this year due to the fact that the income tax now gets directly deposited into the police fund. So the ordinance calls for transfer of up to $325,000 in 2020. So that's everything I've got.
All right, thanks, Mr. Gilpin. Next up is our solicitor, Ms. Supinger.
I do not have a report.
Okay, Chief Teague? For the month of September, we drove 3,987 miles. We had 128 traffic stops. 50 of those were issued a speed. 9 additional were inside of a school zone. 8 driving under suspensions, 2 OVIs, 21 miscellaneous, 65 warnings. We answered 349 calls for service, which resulted in 30 offense reports, 17 incident reports. We had 9 motor vehicle accidents, 7 being non-injury, 2 being serious injury requiring EMS. Drop down to the bottom. We assisted outside agencies 64 times. 22 of those were other law enforcement agencies. 3 were fire runs and 39 were EMS runs. Officer Houchin completed bike training on 9/16 through 9/19. We've already utilized him with the Burke Fest that I'm sure will be talked about later on. I completed my NTAC leads certification training on the 24th in Columbus. Officer Houchin and Officer Breeze took part of Burke Fest on the 28th of September. They approximately 60 to 80 people were in attendance through the 8 hours of it. On the 13th of September, we conducted a safety drill in conjunction with the Grant Vocational School for one of their many annual lockdown Alice drills. On the 2nd of October, we had Coffee with a Cop at McDonald's. That was attended by approximately about 20 people. Most were the normal Liars Clubs, but there was a couple of additional people who did show up. That was attended by myself, Sergeant Plank, and Officer Colopy. Homecoming parade was on the 4th that Mr. Byrd spoke about. We had a great turnout. We did get jinxed by one of the fire department firefighters. They said, you guys haven't had a run all day long, and we got 2 within like 3 minutes of him saying that. One of them was a field fire down in Washington Township. We had to hold the parade up long enough for the fire department to go all the way from the middle school to the fire department, get the trucks, and then come all the way back to 133 to go towards Washington Township.
So we delayed the parade by about 5 minutes for kickoff. We placed an order for the 2020 Chevy 1500 Crew Cab truck. That is tentative to be placed into production line on the 9th of December. With GM being on strike, we don't know exactly when that'll be, but we're forecasting somewhere in January that'll show up. Trick or treat, as stated earlier, is October 31st between the hours of 6 and 8. We will have our entire force, which is 6 officers, 5 full-time and 1 part-time. We'll all be out at the major intersections in downtown for safety. We've had 3 goats in the last couple of days that have been giving the officers quite a bit of runaround. Lucky to report that those goats were actually captured by the Feed and Seed this morning, with the owner still unknown who they are.
My bad.
We'll probably bring that up to safety to discuss a procedure or some place to handle those type of animals now that we have okayed them in our village. Whenever law enforcement comes across them, whether it be potbelly pigs or goats or
Chickens.
chickens, anything.
You're having at your neck Burke Fest.
Exactly. We're gonna have roast of lamb.
Roast goat.
Good. Okay.
I lost my train of thought. I was going to say, it's okay.
It's going to be bad.
The only last thing I have is just more or less a public safety. If you see something outside, whether it be an auto accident in your front yard or you see something that is suspicious, please call our agency whenever that happens. Do not wait till the next day to call us. I'll give you a really quick scenario. We had a young lady, I'm saying young, she was probably in her 70s. She was in an accident right in front of Mr. Brown's, right outside of town by U.S. Grant. And she crashed her vehicle the other night at 9:15, and she remained in that vehicle until 8:15 the next morning. She was trapped in that vehicle. Multiple broken arms, broken an ankle, multiple injuries. It should have probably been a fatality. She was in that vehicle. Many passerbys went by. That was the night we had the extreme fog. We received 0 calls. An ODOT worker found her the next day whenever he looked over and saw the sign was down, saw a vehicle sitting in Mr. Brown's front yard, went to check on the sign and found the lady still trapped inside the vehicle. So just a public service announcement, if you see something, please call the police department and let us come investigate it, even if it's something that you think is very minor. So that's all I have.
Oh, I know what it was. Will we be getting any golf cart?
We've had one this week so far. This is our very first one. Mr. Smith from the fire department, Timmy Smith, called and asked some questions about what he needed to do to pass the inspection to go get his tags. So that is our first one. So I've made up the little packet for them with a copy of our ordinance, giving them all of our bylaws, the inspection form for the state of Ohio, and just a little cheat sheet of what you can do and what you can't do from the police department. So
Just
that
one-
was ready to go. We've had
One
one.
clarification for that is, I saw somebody driving around in a golf cart. It was licensed, it looked like it had everything, but if that doesn't have to be inspected by us? If
It
it's
has to be inspected by us.
Even if it's already licensed?
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct. The ordinance reads that if it is, it can be licensed outside and operated, but it must be inspected by the village police department before used on the village streets.
Okay.
So that must pass our inspection.
Good.
Yeah, I saw that guy yesterday, and he was driving up 133, heading north out of town.
Which is not permitted because that is a 35-mile-per-hour zone, and we are only allowed on 25 or less.
We need to capture that guy.
Absolutely, we'll capture him. We'll put him in the pen with the goats.
High-speed bike chase.
Exactly, exactly, and that's all I have.
Thanks, Chief. Next up is our Safety Committee Chair, Ms. Holyfield.
Safety Committee did not meet in October. Our next meeting is November 12th at 5:30.
Okay. Thank you. Next up is our Finance Committee Chair, Ms. Shepherd.
Mr. Gilpin has already gone over most of what we talked about at the finance meeting we met yesterday evening. Could you specify where anyone wanting that audit would go to?
If you go to the state auditor's website, there's a link that's very prominent for financial audits. You would just click that
Financial
link.
audits, okay.
And then just type in Village of
Okay.
Bethel, and every audit we've ever had will show up.
Okay, because I know when you go on that state website, it gets kind of busy. So it's the
This is
auditor's
pretty clean
website.
interface, so it's easy to
Okay,
find.
better than it was then.
I'm sure it's a riveting read.
I read it, it was.
Almost as good as the water tower. We also, Mr. Gilpin also, we are starting to get some of the gas tax money coming in, and he's quoted that possibly they'll bring the village in around $50,000. Now, I want to reiterate, gas or fuel is 10.5 cents, but diesel is 18 cents. So that was the tax that was added on.
Yeah, that was the increase above whatever it already was.
We also talked about possibly getting, Mr. Dotson has spoken with AEP about some type of a solar plant out to the reservoir, and we will continue to discuss that, because it doesn't look very promising at this point in time. That's all I have tonight.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Parks and Village Property, Mr. Coogan.
We don't have a meeting this month, however, we are going to have one on the 12th of November at 6:30, following safety, and our concert turned out to be a bigger success than the first one, and we're looking towards putting together a whole series for next year at the next meeting, as well as researching dog parks. That's it.
Okay, thanks. Which reminds me, going back to finance, weren't we going to move the finance committee meeting to the 12th as well? At
5 if we can.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did forget. It will be November 12th at 5 PM.
Okay.
So it will be the first in that series that night. I apologize for that
So we
omission.
might want to move safety to like 5:45, and then we could still keep Parks and Village at 6:30.
It's going to be a busy night that night. So, just a reminder for everybody.
And I trust that Mr. Dotson will send those reminders out.
I will.
For all of us, thank you.
All right, and get back on track here. Burke Trust, Ms. Ross.
We have not met, I haven't had the need to meet. The only thing was that there was some information about our committees at my seat when I came in, and just for council's knowledge, we will have 2 seats that will be up on the Burke Trust Commission next year. So one will be appointed by the mayor and one by council, and I am going to assume that's done in January?
Well,
Or is it December?
we can do it in December, yeah.
Okay,
Okay, anything else?
that's it.
All right, thanks. Personnel Committee, Ms. Brown?
We have not met, but we do need to meet. I was wondering if the 28th or 29th worked best for the committee.
This month?
20th and
Yes.
29th of October?
8th or 28th, I think I'm on that committee.
We won't be discussing our Halloween costumes.
What the heck? Mine says E2 on it. What does that mean? I'm 20th to 29th works for me, it looks like.
Either one works for me.
You name
29th,
it.
can we do the 28th? I have a dentist appointment on the 29th. You guys will not want to be around me.
Sure, even though the 29th might have been more entertaining for us, we'll go with the 28th.
I probably won't be talking a lot, so I mean, that might be good for you all.
Let's do the 29th. No. 28th.
5:30?
28th, 5:30.
Okay,
Anything else?
that's all that I have.
Personnel.
All right, thanks. Communication Commission, Mr. Noble?
Thank you. We met last month, and that was on the 16th, was that right? No, I didn't have time to get back, but when we met, we
17.
caught up, was it 17th? Okay, so we met on the 17th, and we had a full house, everybody showed up, so that was great. The old business that we were discussing was about the hashtag or the slogan for the village, or, you know, as far as all the entities, you know, kind of being on the same page of, you know, getting that created, or coming up with some ideas that we can come to a conclusion on. I think I mentioned that before. I think Small Town Big Heart, Bethel Proud, and
I thought there was Better in Bethel or something like that.
Yeah,
Janessa
small
was my
town,
secretary, so-
Big Heart, Small Town, Big Heart, Bethel Proud. So those were the 2 taglines that had been
And then
narrowed
we blended
down
the 2
to.
together for the third one. Okay. So Leah Fields has been doing a great job with, you know, researching that kind of stuff and putting feelers out on Facebook and so forth. She's also kind of updated us on the, she's doing the admin for the Bethel United Facebook page. She said she had an increase of members within that 30-day period. I think that she went from, did you write that down? But I think she had close to over 1,000 now, people that was members now. She's actually doing a Halloween contest on there as well, trying to get people to send in pictures of their front porches. I guess she's donating the $20 gift card herself, but trying to get some incentive to, get beautify the town, bring it together. So she's been doing a really good job with heading up a lot of that. The next meeting that we have is going to be,
731.
we have 731 members now? I thought she was closer to 1,000.
No, there's
All right.
731.
So 731 is the member count. Okay. Our next meeting is on the 17th, I believe, is what some.
Was it the 7th? I think it's the 19th of November.
Let me see. If I wrote that down, next
Yeah,
meeting.
19th.
I don't see it on my sheet.
17th is a Sunday.
Yeah, let's see.
You're never on Sunday.
19th.
19th, okay, 19th at 6:30.
Is that it?
Yep, sorry, I was unprepared for that.
That's okay.
Well, I had most of it.
I put Janessa in charge of it.
I think jogged my memory. We had, last Sunday, we had the, basically the grand opening of the Faith Chapel Fitness Center up here, and got to do the ribbon cutting. Really nice facility, lots of nice equipment in there. Had big tees on it. I thought, how cool is that? They got tees on it for Taylor, but they had bought it from Talawanda Schools, who's fitness center. But I mean, it is top-notch stuff in there, so.
There's a lot of stuff.
Didn't we want to mention about the?
That's what personnel committee's for.
Okay, so they're going to discuss that.
One note on the fitness center, they said that they had a goal of having 60 members by the end of the year, and he already met that last
He's
month.
over 100. He's over 100. Philip told me tonight they're over 100, so it's really doing well, so I'm happy for him for that,
Yes.
so.
It's good for not January.
Yeah, right. Imagine what it's going to be in January.
I know.
All right,
His next meeting,
it's the 19th.
19th.
The
19th
19th.
of,
November.
And that brings us to call of members. Ms. Shepherd, you're up first.
I just want to say how nice the homecoming parade was. I think it's one of the best ones that I've seen. There was lots of candy being tossed, and for some reason, I guess kids have changed their tastes in candy because nobody was picking up the Tootsie Rolls. So I had to take care of that. So, but we thoroughly enjoyed ourselves, and I want to compliment the school for doing that. And
Yeah, Sharon and I had a good
Sergeant
time.
Teague, Sergeant Teague, there I go again.
It's okay.
Chief Teague,
It's okay. Okay. Anything else?
that's it.
All right, thanks, Ms. Hollifield.
Dinner on the homecoming was great, and that's really all I have.
Okay, thanks. Ms. Ross?
I don't have anything this evening.
All right, Mr. Northern?
I went to the trustee meeting on Tuesday, and I wanted to pass something along to Travis, Tony, that's our new supervisor. The fire department is very pleased with him. They say that he's working very well with them. When they moved over to the maintenance, new and old business, they even made a comment that they're very impressed with him and they work very good with their maintenance department. So I wanted to bring that back and share it with everybody, that they were very, very happy with the supervisor that we have now.
Yeah, he's done well for us so far.
That's awesome.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Ms. Brown?
I just wanted to reiterate that Leah is having a contest for your porch, and it is open not only to the village, but also to the township residents. So if you give the page a like and share your porch or your stoop or whatever you've decorated, you may win $20, and that was very nice of her to donate her own money for that.
For Halloween?
No, it's just fall decorations, really.
Oh.
I mean, she's got a variety. You could do Halloween-y
Okay.
or fall. So whatever you are into, you can,
Because I got all out to share on our board. I'm going to get it on there.
yeah, you can share. The other thing I wanted to see is if Travis could put on the Facebook page about the leaf collection, just so that people have that reminder, because once they pay their bill, they might throw away that part.
I did have one other
Yeah,
question. What
Once
day?
leaves start falling,
Okay, once a week?
we're just gonna play it by ear. You know, it's been a long time
Okay.
since we've done it, so
Okay.
we're not sure. It depends on, you know, the fall season and how quickly they fall, and, you know, we'll try to get to it whenever it looks like it
Okay.
needs to be done.
Keep it.
The other thing is maybe we could put also on Facebook a reminder, if you see something, say something. It's better to call and report something rather than leave somebody sit and thank God she was okay. That's the main thing. Like, I would prefer to get calls than not on that stuff. And then, the other thing that I had was, I didn't get to go to the homecoming because my mom had surgery that day, but I did hear it was great, and I looked at the pictures, and they were fantastic jobs on the floats and all that, and I think that was very good this year, especially with the weather cooperating. I know
Gorgeous.
sometimes it's pouring down the rain. And that's all that I have.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Coogan?
Yes, trying to find out still what the guidelines are on the liquor boundaries within the park. Have you had a chance to look into that?
Yeah,
Yeah, we talked earlier this week, but it sounds like signs are allowable.
It is? Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So I'll get with the Legion and we'll discuss this. I think they were talking about making the sign, so hopefully we can expand that a little bit. And
It still has to be clearly defined
Right.
ahead of time and approved, you know, it has to match what the drawing is for the F permit.
right. Yeah, one side will read one thing and the other side will read another thing, so, yeah. I've been in touch with Mount Orab's guy who handles this, and theirs is all legal. They put it all out way before the event, and they make giant signs so people can't say they didn't see them, so.
Yeah.
I think the problem you run into is, you know, it becomes a open container once you cross out of the zone.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and we gotta make an area that's pretty much accessible from our officers to view everything in the area and cover it, yeah. Which, in that park is really easy, you know. Another issue that we were looking at on that was also the bathrooms for handicapped accessibility. And we had a couple handicapped folks there that didn't like the fact they had to climb a hill. So we're gonna have to look at putting portalettes or something down a little bit lower if we can. On top of this, I was looking at a couple other things that we can fine tune. And I'm gonna ask if I can get the Burke Park Trust to assist in some of the cost in the future, if at all possible. Because I want to try to get some bigger name bands in, and I'm going to try to limit it to 2 bands, and I'm going to mix it up a little bit with country and western, bluegrass, you know, maybe some oldies and some contemporary rock. So, yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think we'll have a recap of how much we've spent so far at the next finance committee meeting too, so. yeah.
I have a question on just piggyback, is that's okay? If that's okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Is it possible if you wanted to use the Burke money, I'm not saying that's not a thing that's possible, but could we have like a meeting maybe that's specifically just for maybe the park events for everybody, like a special meeting?
Well, we're supposed to have a joint meeting with Burke Trust to begin.
We're just talking about like Parks and Village and Burke Trust. If they want to ask the money, maybe we can just get together in a meeting capacity rather than them going, this is what we're asking for, will you discuss it in your meeting? Like maybe we could have like a special council meeting to discuss specifically events in the park for
Wow.
next year, so we can kind of all brainstorm if it's going to be something that like crosses all the boundary, you know,
Right.
crosses the committees.
Yeah, what I had in mind is essentially one meeting to cover all events. Is that way we can knock it all out? in one
Yeah, no, I think
week.
that's great. I just saying if we had one maybe for everybody, so maybe
Yeah.
like, since it's gonna cross different, I mean, you got personnel in there too and safety, and you got everyone kind of
Yeah, we did that last year. We had a joint meeting of council and them, and I don't think they,
Park Trust and Council.
or trust and council. I think you guys will have to probably do that. Well, actually, it says it in the trust agreement that we should.
Well, I just
have a
wanted
joint
to
meeting.
make sure what that meeting that we can actually
Yeah.
discuss these events.
do we need-
So I
guess.
think that perhaps if the committees kind of plan that in the next 2 months, that they.
Does that make
kind of
sense what I'm trying to say?
Consider what the committees want to discuss with the Brook Trust, and then when you have the joint meeting at the beginning of the year, we can kind of go through each committee and what.
Well, I guess I was saying more like, when I say committees, I meant like council.
Yeah.
Right, and so
Okay.
we'll have, all of council at the meeting, so we'll have,
Okay.
the committee head from each committee will be there and the members will all be there.
Okay.
It'll work. It should work.
And on top of this, Mel Dean has always spearheaded some kind of a political candidates get-together. And Mel is running for District 66 rep. So we don't have anybody spearheading this in the area. And I'd kind of like for people to know this. So I was wondering if we can get a special town hall going maybe, or, and have.
Between now and the election?
Pardon?
Between now and the election?
Yeah, I know, it's close, yeah.
Well, I mean, there's really only one contested race.
Well,
Right.
I think the people who are asking not for council or mayor, it would be the township and the state rep.
So like a candidates night?
Yeah.
Yes.
But that might get more piqued interest as a town hall, and I was gonna mention that too, and I'm glad you brought that up.
I don't think we'd be able to get it organized between now and then.
I think you should keep those items separate too, not conflate them.
Yeah. I don't know. I ain't volunteering. Anything else, Mr. Coogan?
Nope.
Okay. I am pumped up about reading these legislations. This is ordinance 1918, an ordinance authorizing the fiscal officer to transfer money from the electric operating fund to the electric extension and replacement fund, repealing all conflicting ordinances. This is second reading. Ordinance 1919 is an ordinance authorizing the fiscal officer to transfer money from the water revenue fund to the water extension replacement fund, repealing all conflicting ordinance. Second reading. Ordinance 1920 is an ordinance authorizing the fiscal officer to transfer money from the water revenue fund to the water infrastructure replacement fund. Second reading. Ordinance 1921 is an ordinance setting rent for the electric and water departments and repealing all conflicting ordinance. That's a second reading. It's going to be a busy month next month. Ordinance 1923 is an ordinance authorizing the retention of Keith C. Foreman as prosecutor to provide prosecutorial services for the Village of Bethel, Ohio. This is a first reading. Ordinance 1924 is an ordinance confirming Joseph Candido as magistrate, first reading. Ordinance 1925 is an ordinance authorizing the fiscal officer to transfer money from the general fund to police operations fund, first reading. Ordinance 1926 is an ordinance establishing Fund 2909, a restricted fund within the village budget to be entitled Mayor's Court Fund, first reading. Resolution 1039 is a resolution establishing wages and salaries for village employees for 2020, first reading. And Resolution 1040, a resolution requesting the Claremont County Auditor to advance taxes and assessments from the proceeds of tax levies pursuant to Section 321.34 of the Ohio Revised Code, and this is a first reading. I am amazing at that.
That was quick.
So next month, we'll have several of those as a third reading, and in December, we'll be busy with some third readings as well. So that brings us to approval of expenses. I trust you all have seen those. Any corrections or amendments to them? Questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to accept those.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Ross first. Would you call the roll, please, Mr. Gilpin?
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
Thank you. Now I entertain a motion, we pay the bills.
Move we pay the bills.
Thanks, Ms. Hallfield. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Coogan. Would you call the roll, please, Mr. Gilpin?
Okay. Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Ms. Hallfield?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Mr. Noble?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Coogan?
Yes.
All right, that brings us to adjournment. I entertain a motion, we adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned.